You know, some books are more than just paper and ink. They're kind of like artifacts, a key to a hidden world, a manual for a secret craft. Today, we're going to take a look at one of the most famous of them all, Jorge Cervantes' Marijuana Horticulture, a guide that pretty much became the go-to text for a whole global underground community. Now, this thing didn't start out as some glossy encyclopedia. Not at all. The first edition back in '83 was super basic. Just 96 black and white pages held together by two staples. Seriously, the author and his wife literally stapled the first copies together themselves. I mean, this was pure grassroots DIY stuff for a community that had to live in the shadows. But okay, fast forward to 2006, the transformation is just stunning. It went from that little stapled pamphlet to a 512-page full-color beast with over 1,000 photos and diagrams. And this wasn't just a simple update, you know? It was a total transformation that basically mirrored how the whole clandestine cultivation world was evolving, from a quiet hobby into a seriously sophisticated global craft. So that brings us to the big question, right? Why did a book like this even need to exist in the first place? What kind of world creates a demand for a secret horticultural Bible, a detailed manual for a hidden world? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The world these growers lived in was incredibly high stakes. The 2006 edition of this book wasn't written for someone with a casual green thumb. No, it was for people who were navigating a legal and political minefield, where one little mistake could mean losing everything. And the book makes it clear these weren't just abstract risks. It tells the story of Steven McWilliams, a medical cannabis activist. After he was convicted for cultivation, a judge actually ordered him to stop using the one thing that helped his chronic pain. He tragically took his own life, leaving a note that said the pain was just unbearable. This quote, it just lays out the stakes in these really stark human terms. The book points out this really fascinating contradiction in history. For decades, you had these official government-appointed commissions, in Canada way back in 1928, and even one appointed by President Nixon in '72, that all recommended decriminalization. So there was this huge conflict. You had expert panels saying the law should change, while at the same time, official policy was just getting harsher and harsher. So here's the key to the book's whole perspective. It frames this situation as the war on drugs. It describes it as a campaign that wasn't driven by science, but by what it calls fear and misinformation, all spun by government agencies and these powerful officials they call drug czars. This was the intense environment that pushed the whole practice deep, deep underground. Okay, so with that whole political scene set, let's turn to the plant itself, the thing at the center of all this controversy. To grow it right, especially in secret, you first have to really understand it, down to its chemistry and biology. And the book really breaks down the science in some fascinating detail. So it all starts with these things called cannabinoids. The book explains that they're a class of chemicals you find nowhere else in nature, like they are only in cannabis. And while science had confirmed about 40 different kinds back then, here's the kicker. Many of them have no psychoactive effect at all. For a grower, that's lesson number one. And within that unique group of chemicals, the book really zeroes in on the two big players, THC and CBD. Now, THC is kind of the star of the show. It's the main psychoactive part. But CBD plays this really interesting supporting role. The book says it has a sedative quality that can actually delay the high from THC, but then make it last twice as long. Just think about that for a second. If you're a grower trying to create a very specific kind of experience, that detail is absolutely everything. And the science gets really granular, right down to the microscopic level. This diagram here shows the stoma. They're these tiny little pores, mostly on the underside of the leaves. You can basically think of them as the plant's lungs. They breathe in CO2, and they breathe out oxygen and water. For an indoor grower who's trying to build a perfect artificial world for their plants, understanding and controlling that process, well, it's everything. All right, so now that we've got the political background and the basic science down, let's get into the craft itself. This is really the heart and soul of the Bible. All the meticulous techniques for growing when getting discovered just isn't an option. And the range of methods in this book is just incredible. On one end of the spectrum, you've got what's called guerrilla growing. Finding a hidden spot outside, maybe camouflaged in some blackberry bushes. And then on the complete opposite end, you have these super sophisticated climate-controlled hydroponic rooms that look like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie. And the advice gets super practical because, the dangers weren't just about getting caught. Think about it. Running all those high-wattage lamps and pumps and fans 24/7 puts a massive strain on an electrical system. The book is very clear about the risk of fire from overloaded circuits, and that was a huge, very real threat for any indoor grower. But it doesn't just warn you, it teaches you. I mean, this is why people called it a Bible. It gives you these detailed diagrams on how to set up safe, properly grounded electrical systems. This wasn't just about growing a good crop, it was about keeping people and their homes safe. But what I think really shines through is the incredible ingenuity, that DIY spirit. The book is just packed with these clever solutions. I mean, check this out. Need a rooting hormone to help your clones grow? Just brew it from willow branches. Want some security for your outdoor spot? Hey, plant it near some stinging nettles or a wasp nest. It's not just gardening tips, right? It speaks to this whole spirit of counterculture, self-sufficiency. And the book brings all this stuff to life with real case studies, like the story of Nigel and Terry. So you've got these two friends who start out with this really basic, inefficient setup, and their first crop is, well, it's a struggle. But then an expert helps them apply to principles from the book, better airflow, modern reflectors, and their second try was a massive success, what the book calls a literal sea of green. So what did that success look like? 12.5 kilograms. We're talking nearly 28 pounds here. That number, it isn't just a number. It represents the power of doing your homework, of applying knowledge the right way. It's that jump from being an amateur to being a pro. And so, in the end, after all that work, all that risk, it all leads to this: a single, healthy, mature plant. This one image really brings it all together, doesn't it? The political defiance, the deep science, the careful craft, and of course, the constant, ever-present risk. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought. This book was totally a product of its time, a guide for a world of prohibition. But now, with laws changing all over the place, you have to wonder, what is the legacy of that secret gardener? And how did all that knowledge, all that craft that was perfected in the shadows, end up shaping the world we're all seeing today?